Racing. It's quite literally a drug. It's something that no matter how long you stop doing it, there will always be an itch to do it again. It gets in your blood, continuously wanting you to do it again and achieve perfection. Whether it is the perfect lap, the fastest speed, or even the perfect slide. That craving to go back on that track or get into that car you haven't driven in a long time will always get to you. During my conversation with Bill Howard, a retired local race car driver from the 1970s, I realized just how true these characteristics about racing are. It was a great conversation that I hope to share with you all. I'm Angel, and this is MDNX. Enjoy. So I'm here with Bill Howard.
Well, first things first, press the like button, press the subscribe button.
It seems like you've done this before.
And press the notifications button.
You've done this before.
Then he'll do okay. If you like the content, do those three
All right,
things
you've
and
definitely,
you'll help Angel out.
You've definitely done this one before, huh?
Yeah, well no, not in this type of thing.
I'll just kind of sit here a bit with you.
I'll be squinting a bit. Okay.
Story.
I'm putting a plug for the restaurant too.
Yeah, definitely. Riverside Cafe, Vero Beach.
So if you find yourself hungry in Vero Beach, Florida, you go over the bridge and make two right turns immediately, and you will find yourself at the Riverside Cafe, which is right on the river. I asked for Chef Brandon, who is my son. Okay, now on with the
Yeah, so how old are you, sir?
I am 69 years old.
Oh wait, no, he hates when you call him sir. How are you?
Yeah, don't call me sir. You don't have to go. You're just a guy and I'm just a guy. Anyway.
Yeah, so
I'm 69 years old. And I retired from being a local track NASCAR driver 42 years ago in 1980, where I was figure 8 division. We raced on a 1/5 mile banked asphalt track with a figure 8 course.
So let's start in one of the coolest stories that you told me, which is what got you into racing. How did it all start and how did that spark begin?
Sure, I came from a family of car people who respected automobiles, and I had ancestors who collected antique cars. The car I actually ever drove was a 1928 Stanley Steamer.
Whoa.
Always a car person, but I was always interested as a kid in the racing aspect of it. So when I was 12 years old, I was delivering newspapers back in the day when kids that age did that kind of thing. And so I would hang out at a gas station near my house where I grew up. And there was a guy there who was one of the mechanics who once in a while would bring his figure 8 racing car into the shop to put it up on the lift and work on it. So I'd hang out there and go, oh, race car, cool, you know. So one fine day he said to me, here kid, here's a couple bucks. Go to the hardware store and buy Rust-Oleum red gloss paint and a brush, red black paint, and get inside there and paint my roll bars. So I said, cool, because I'll let me crawl into the race car, sit in the seat, paint his roll bars, and so that's how I got started. So the guy who became my mentor, teammate, and partner always had a teammate who was his second driver. And I would hitch a ride out to ISlip Speedway on Long Island with that guy's wife. From the age of 12 onward, I was at ISlip Speedway every Saturday.
That's got to be the coolest thing ever.
Then when I was 16, I conned my parents into signing the waiver that would let me work in the hot pits. And
so did they know what waiver they were signing?
Yeah, I think.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how they. I don't know what behind the bedroom door discussions there were that resulted in saying okay. But, so I worked in the pits as a pit crew guy, and then when I was 18, my mentor, partner, teammate, whose name was Ernie Maynor, M-A-Y-N-O-R. You can look him up online. And he bought a transporter truck that came with a really crappy old figure 8 car with 8-ply truck tires, totally not competitive. And he said, let Bill take it out. So, okay, I'll take it out.
How old were you when you took that car out?
I was 18 when I first drove a race car.
Probably got to be one of the coolest 18 birthday presents ever.
And of course, you don't know what you're doing. And you have to tell yourself to put your foot all the way down because you never ever do that on the street. Well, maybe.
Not really.
But, when
Not for an
nobody's
extended period of time.
But yeah, so, and unlike today, where you have plenty of driving schools, YouTube videos, all that kind of training that, you know, online stuff you can watch, back then it was get out there and keep your foot in it, keep your revs up. And that was the extent of the driver training that I had. So you go out there and you flounder around and you try not to hit the wall or other cars. And with that as my basis for training, through numerous warm-ups. Each Saturday night at ISlip Speedway, you get 2 like 10-minute warm-ups.
Yep.
10-lap warm-ups. Then you run a qualifying race, and if you didn't qualify, you ran in the consolation race, and if you did qualify, you'd run in the feature race. So, you know, through all those experiences, it took me into my 3rd season before I considered myself competent. And by the time I was at the end of my 3rd season, I could tell that I was getting respect from my competitors. But until then, I was a hacker and still learning and doing the best I could.
It's where you find the fun, though, huh? Because you still had fun out there.
It's not fun until you know what you're doing. Like I'm almost to the fun point.
Yeah.
You know, my times are slowly coming down, and I'm getting more consistent.
I've seen, yeah.
But I still need a couple more seconds.
Yeah.
When it's fun is when you know what you're doing and the machine is working properly.
True. That's another part.
You're driving it as fast as it can possibly be driven.
Yeah.
That's when it's fun. And then when you pass as many people as possible. I won't give you the early part of that where it resulted in my getting a good starting position.
What are your most memorable races? So I know you told me about a couple. You even told me actually one of the most coolest things that you told me was that your wife used to race too. And I'll definitely show them as well if it's okay with you.
Well, we didn't meet until I was in my probably 4th season, and she was hanging out, and they decided to have a women's division. So, being that she was my girlfriend at the time, you know, you're sort of forced to build your girl a race car. And they were just basically junkers with a roll cage. No engine modifications, no special tires, just a roll cage. And that was pretty much it. Put a number on the side and you got it. Whereas the cars I built, it took us all winter to build them. We were able to use special sticky tires and design our own suspension. And the engines had rules about what you could do to them. It was a 6-cylinder class. You're topping out at about 80 miles an hour for a millisecond.
Yeah.
And they didn't run the women's cars every race. It was like every 3rd or 4th.
Yeah, but it was like
it was like a special event at some nights during the summertime. So Sharon ran in the women's division. She did very well. It wasn't a winner, but she got out there and did it. In fact, the first time she raced, we brought her car to ISlip Speedway, and we were rained out that night. There was another quarter-mile track called Freeport Speedway that wasn't rained out, and her car was eligible for their bomber class, which is basically junkers.
So that's what bombers is.
So she said, I'm game for it. That's her credit. We towed her car over to Freeport, and we bought the season's license for her. And she went out there in the warm. Well, no, she got into the car, and she got out of the car, puked all over the ground, got back in the car, tightened her belts, and she went out there and did it.
Like a champ, huh?
Her credit.
Yeah.
She had the guts to do it. But at Freeport, unlike NASCAR, when you're new, you start at the back for 3 weeks until you prove that you know what you're doing. At Freeport, they started the new cars up at the front. So, of course, there was Sharon on pole position, her first ever race. And so they didn't kill her, and she marched from the front to the back within about 2 laps. She had no experience, you know.
It's all good. It's all good.
So, but then at the end of the 2nd season, when my points championship was over, they decided to have a Sunday afternoon battle of the sexes race, where they put the men out in the women's slow cars and the women out in the men's fast cars. They put all the women up front in the fast cars and all the men in the back in the slow cars. And all I wanted to do was catch up to her driving my car, give her a shot in the tail, but I didn't get the chance because as I was passing a woman on the outside, she was in over her head. She lost it. She ran me up and stuffed me into the wall. So I took Sharon's car. Her chassis was about a foot back on the right side, and I destroyed her car. Then, they waved the red flag for every accident. So she had to learn the art of doing restarts. It's an art. Especially when you've got a standard ship, because you're revving your engine, you come around the port, you're listening to what the guy next to you is doing, and you try and fake him out. Rev up your engine, he revs up his engine. And as soon as he backs off, you know that's when to go because his engine's down in red.
Yep.
You go. So she did that because she had the best car because it was all guys and women's cars.
Yeah.
She had the fastest car, but she survived probably 4 or 5 restarts, and she went on and won the race.
Oh, come on, that's awesome.
She got a little trophy, and I'll show you a picture.
Yeah.
And so that was her claim to fame. The problem with that was our son Brandon, who's the restaurant, was about 3 at the time, and he could never go to the races on Saturday night because he was too little.
Yeah.
But he was sitting in the stands on that Sunday afternoon race with his grandfather, and so we got to see Mommy and Daddy race. So what happened? Daddy gets stuffed in the wall, and Mommy goes on and wins the race.
What a story.
So for Brandon, forevermore, despite my 5 years of full-time stock car racing, it was always, Mommy always wins, Daddy always crashes. So I've had to live with that.
That's a really nice story, though. That's
So,
what are the odds, right?
Yeah, right. So,
have you podiumed before as well, or?
I've won. I'll show you some of my checkered flag pictures.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Not
yeah.
here, I've not podiumed.
Do you have any memorable wins that I'll have stuck with you
one
for
was
so
an
long?
interesting race. It was a special race because at another track local to us, they had a division where the cars were similar, but they could use V8 engines, and we were only allowed 6 cylinders. But we had better tires than they did. So they ran a race, a special race, where they mixed us all up. And, you know, they could blow by us on the straight, but when they got to the turns, they'd all plow up to the wall, and we'd dive underneath them. So there was like a 25-lap mixed race like that I won. But I had to hold off my mentor, partner, teammate, Ernie, who was closing in on me, and if the race had been 5 more laps, he would have got me because he was vastly more.
So he's the one that sent you to get the Rust-Oleum?
Yeah, I was a little kid of 12 years old when I started hanging out with him. And then I was hitching a ride out to the races with the wife of his other driver.
Did you ever beat him in a race, though?
Only due to crashing. Only because I got by him.
You never got the bragging rights then, huh?
No. And to add insult to injury, he had his son Roger, several years younger than me, and you know, usually he was a little kid, but as he grew up, he joined the Air Force, and he was stationed over in Germany. And one year, he came back on leave, and since my arrangement with his dad was my car is the backup car to Ernie's car, because in figure 8, you can spend all winter building your car, and it can be totally destroyed the first week. So you need to have a
backup.
So I was the teammate whose car Ernie could take over to stay in the points. But when Roger came back from the Air Force on leave, it was decided that I would step aside one week and let Roger take my car out in the figure 8 race. And what'd he do? He goes out and he wins the figure 8 feature.
What?
In my car.
Well,
Roger took after his father, and unfortunately Ernie, his father, 2 years after I retired, he kept on racing. He got mixed up in a very bad crash, and he got crunched between 2 cars, and his car went airborne. And it's a fact of physics that your brakes don't work when your tires are off the ground. And he went and hit the wall, and he was kind of heavyweight. You'll see his picture. And he died. You know, so that's the guy that I grew up with and who gave me my start and helped me build my cars. And
started it
so
all.
I owe everything to Ernie.
Yeah.
Later on, after I retired, he became known as Ernie the Wrench Maynor because he was known as a mechanic. But his son Roger, when he got out of the Air Force, he came and started racing full-time out of his dad's shop and had great success at ISlip Speedway and Riverhead Raceway, which were the other Long Island tracks.
Yeah. Why'd you get into karting again, other than bigger forms of motorsport?
You know, 42 years ago when I retired, I had to give it up because my car got taken out in a T-bone accident. I was in the lead of the figure 8 feature. The last place guy came through and didn't stop, and he took me out. And at that point, I had a wife, 2 kids, and a mortgage to pay. And I decided I can't really spend that much time racing any longer.
Yeah.
So we made that hard decision to get out. But once you're a racer, the competitive desire never goes away. So I'm in an age now at 69 where I don't really want to build a car. I really don't want to own a car and be responsible for the maintenance. So this is something that I can do where we show up with our helmet and you get a cart that's roughly equivalent. Some are better than others, but they give you a cart that's roughly equivalent. And I'm out there mixing it up with you guys and regaining my competitive spirit.
Something to fuel that.
While I'm learning, this is a completely different vehicle from a 2,600-pound stock car with a standard transmission and all of that. So trying to learn how to drive this type of vehicle.
And type of tracks too.
Yes. Well, so the good thing about this place is that it's the same track every time. So that takes a variable out. I've tried a couple other tracks around, and they keep changing the track configuration. And I like this because it's a professional track. The management is awesome here. They give you pretty good equipment, and the track is the same. So also there's a challenge for me. Now, I'm a heavy rental guy. The challenge for me is to get into the upper half of the heavy rental group within the 4 classes that are in the race. And if I can pick off some of the light rental guys, despite my being heavier than they are, that's good. And I even passed a couple of the speedy cars last time. So it's being in what should be the slowest class, anybody that I pass is a victory,
So how did you fund your racing? That was another thing that I wanted to ask you. I know racing gets very expensive.
Yes, it is. Well, yes. I went for 4 years to college, and I got a job, and I was single. So as soon as I was done with my job, I flipped the switch, and I started working on my race car.
Yeah.
And I ate, slept, breathed, running, building my race car. But the division I was in was very inexpensive because back in the day, you'd basically build your own car. So if you had a friendly junkyard, which I did, John's Towing, there's a plug, I don't know if John's still alive. John's Towing, I had another sponsor who had a junkyard, Joey Mamalito, that's who it was. And Joey would let us go back in his junkyard and take anything we wanted. So my last race car had the chassis rails of a 55 Chevy. We got the front clip of a Camaro, which was a unibody. We welded that to the front of the 55 Chevy chassis. Ford 411 rear axle.
Jeez.
3-speed standard transmission. You'd build your own car.
Would that pass tech today?
I don't know. They haven't changed rules, but there were certain things you could do the engine, and you had to meet all their requirements, but it wasn't super expensive. So a guy like me with a job and nothing else, no women to spend my money on, that came later. So I was able to focus on that. It was relatively inexpensive.
Yeah. So what year is that helmet from again?
About 75. But what's interesting is you see how much smaller it is physically than today's helmet.
Good job, rental heavy.
That is crazy.
And I'm trying to get myself ready to try and duplicate the lettering that she did for me back in the day on this helmet. Because my teammate's son used to get an 8mm movie camera.
And the winner for rental light class, Dylan Williams.
That is so cool. I just can't believe that's you. Oh,
yeah, that
sorry
one doesn't
about
have a frame.
I just can't believe that one's you.
Yep.
That's him. You really are a pioneer in this stuff, really.
Well,
It's like an untold legend,
still early times in NASCAR.
We're going to start with corner 10. We're going to go reverse.
Childress,
What?
who owns one of the biggest teams.
So
he was a back marker.
let me quickly, literally what we're talking about right now. So, a Bill right here was telling me that, this raceway, which was
ISlip
Speedway
on Long Island, New York.
on Long Island, New York, was actually a NASCAR sanctioned track.
Yep.
and Richard Petty has raced on it, and Bill has seen Richard Petty race.
In fact, Mario Andretti drove
Mario Andretti too.
in midgets.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Just look at these. Let me finish taking pictures of these.
I'm very honored to say I drove on the same racetrack as Mario Andretti.
Does that racetrack still exist?
No, they tore it down.
Unfortunately.
About 4 or 5 years after I retired.
And there you have it. Stories of a time where racing felt like the Wild Wild West. This was an amazing conversation, and it truly highlights just what this series is all about. These features that we do are a documentation of the automotive world and the people within it, to highlight just how vast and diverse it is, and all the different creative minds that accumulate to create this culture that we know of today. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you all next week on MDNX.